I was born in Dearborn, Michigan, but I grew up in Los Angeles. Kind of an average middle-class house. I started getting jobs and working and making money and stuff when I was 11. When we moved to Los Angeles, my mom wound up taking us to a Baptist church. They told us the usual situation, basically, God loves you and God wants you to bend to his will, even though he gave you free will. Somehow that seemed contradictory. And if you don't go along with this program, he's going to condemn you for the rest of eternity. That didn't strike me as altogether right. And then I felt like I had been just betrayed. It's like, here, you do this and everything will work out great. Only I did that and nothing worked out great. And I would say that for about 2 years, I prayed every day. I want the truth. This would have been summertime, 1966. I believe I was 14. My mom took my brother and I and went down to Santa Monica Beach. And they had these blow-up rafts that were made of some heavy canvas type thing. And you could rent them for the day. So my mom rented us a couple of rafts. And I went down and jumped in the water. I said, wow, cool. So I went out there and I start paddling through the waves. I'd never been in the ocean before. I didn't know how this worked. There are sets of waves that come in. Each one breaks a little closer to the beach. And after 7 waves, it starts back at the beginning. Well, I didn't know that the 7th wave just went in front of me. I mean, I came through the wave, turned around, I'm looking at the beach, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm out beyond the waves. No. I'm sitting there looking at the beach, and this wall of water comes down in front of my face. The raft shot straight up in the air, and I went straight to the bottom of the ocean and landed face first in the bottom. At least I knew which way up was, because if I opened my eyes, all I saw was swirling sand. I couldn't tell you which way was up. But because I hit the bottom, I turned around, put my feet on the bottom, and pushed off and popped out on the surface and got a breath of air. And that was just to make life even more exciting. I didn't get a breath of air when I got hit by the wave. I didn't know I was going down. So I had to go to the bottom, turn around, kick around, and swim back up, and then get some air. Well, this has got me in a real deficit all the way out of the gate. I'm in trouble because I didn't get a chance to get good, solid breaths. And of course, I get to the surface, and I'm looking at the beach, and here comes another wall of water. And it just kept going like that. So I go down 3 times or so, and I realize that unless I can do something to change this, I won't make it. And finally, I broke surface that time, and I knew I didn't have the energy to swim to the surface again from the bottom. If I went down again, that was it. It was going to be over. And I was perfectly okay with that. I was very much at peace. It's like, well, if this is your time to go, then if it's your time, it's your time. There's nothing you can do to argue with it. And this feeling came over me as I was getting knocked down again. Overwhelming peace. And a feeling of being loved. Like you couldn't begin to describe that feeling. We don't have English for it. You don't generally feel that sort of thing on this planet. I have gone from I'm starting to panic to I have no panic whatsoever. Completely at peace. And I looked up and down the beach, and in the time that it took me to look from one end of the beach to the other, and that's just moving my eyes, not turning my head, I relived my whole life. Every last minute of it. It's just, here's what you did. Cool. Do an instant replay. And let go. It's over. This didn't strike me as a trauma at all. You're loved and you're at peace. What more could you ask for? I was leaving 3D, and at that moment, I turned loose of my body, but I also turned loose of all of my senses. I quit picking up information from my eyes, my skin, my nose. None of it. The only sense I had left was my sixth sense. You're telepathic. We all are. We're telepathic while we're here, but we ignore it. And people say, well, how do you become telepathic? Quit forgetting that you know. It's real simple. I got on the other side, and I could have told you every moment of every person on this planet. Every one of their lifetimes, everything they did, everything they felt, everything. And more important than that, because it makes it so much bigger than that, is that I could tell you that about anybody who'd ever lived on this planet, or that was here now, or that ever would be. The amount of information that we can access is absolutely startling. What's on the internet? And there's a massive amount of information on the internet. It's a marvelous thing. I love it. Couldn't hold a candle to this. And I've heard people refer to this as the Akashic record. There's no other term for it, and that term seems to pretty much fit it, so I'll use the term. Everything you do, everything you have done, everything you will do is all part of the Akashic record. And it's true for all of us, which is how you can access it and you can see everybody else's experiences, because we're all tied together. And so, what's the one thing you'll say about the other side that is the most impressive thing? That love, that unconditional love. It is so big. It is so difficult to put it into terms that can convey that, because we don't have anything like that on planet Earth. We're used to this, and there's love here. Yeah, lots of wonderful kinds of love. Doesn't hold a candle to that. It is just so much more important. That so many people have questioned me on that. You can't have unconditional love. There's got to be judgment. Doesn't work like that. I became aware of the fact that I was surrounded by living souls, countless living souls. And it couldn't be crowded because there's no space there and there's no time there, and I can't see there, so I can't see if something's right here or if something's over here. It is irrelevant. So I'm there, I'm aware of the fact that there are all these other souls around me. And there are still, by the way. They're there and you could pick up on if you want to. You wind up having to live in two different dimensions simultaneously. That's kind of spreading yourself thin. I'm on the other side and I'm around all these other beings, and I'm just saying this is absolutely blissful. I could spend the rest of eternity parked right here doing just exactly what I'm doing. Wonderful place. And about that time I really got that set in my head, I felt somebody grab the arm that I no longer had. I left my body behind, and I feel somebody grab my arm and pull me and throw me to the surface of the water. I didn't have time to sit and ponder whether or not I'd like to go. And if you'd have asked me, a couple of minutes later, I'd have looked at you and said, I didn't want to go. This was not my idea. It appeared that it was somebody else's idea. Now, I do believe, in fact, it was my idea, but it's a greater self. It's part of your subconscious, that which you are not conscious of while you're here, but it is part of you. And it's actually the larger part of you. So I do believe that you choose to come back. I don't think you're pushed into it. And I don't think anybody on the other side is telling you, this is what you need to do next. I'm on the other side. I'm at source. Everything's wonderful, and somebody grabs my arm. I got pushed towards the beach, which got me away from that place where I kept getting cycled, and I just started swimming. I didn't have to swim and take my weight to the surface. All I had to do is just move some water and I would move towards the beach. Plus, I'm now in front of the waves, and when they hit me, they're pushing me even more instead of pulling me down. So thank God, if it had not been for that, I probably wouldn't have made it. And I finally hit the sand with my hand and I just crawled up onto the beach. And that's where the questions started. If there was a person that pulled me out, if I were that person, I would have followed me in to make sure I got there all right. Didn't. And 30 feet that way, there's a couple on a towel. A couple feet beyond them is another one. A couple over here. I'm laying in the middle of a bunch of people with no towel, just laying in the middle of the sand in a heap. And for what had to be 15, 20 minutes, nobody said, "Are you all right?" It was like they didn't see me. That part was bizarre. When I finally got up, it was probably 15, 20 minutes later, to get my breath back and get to the point where I could actually sit up and then stand up. All I wanted to do is walk up to the first person that I saw and say, "I just died out there." And then I realized that they'd look at me and say, "We think you're crazy." And then I start walking down the beach back to where my mom was sitting, and it occurred to me long before I got to where my mom was that I didn't want to tell my mom that I just died out there. I'd ruined that poor woman's life. I did, in fact, tell my mom about this whole thing in 1988, 22 years later, when she was headed for her dying. I said, "Look, you got to understand something. I've been dead. I know where you're going. And I don't know how nervous you are about that, but don't be. You got nothing to be nervous about." I gave her the nuts and bolts of it. "Look, I drowned out in the ocean and I worked my way back to you, and I didn't want to tell you because I don't want to put you through it." And she was very appreciative of that. I thought, "Oh, that's nice." You know? So yeah, eventually I did tell her, but not for the longest time. You don't forget those things. You'll remember them forever. It's weird. It's like part of you goes on living that, and part of you, just a part of you, comes back here and says, "All right, I'll go deal with this." But that's the real deal, and I know it. Look, I'm not out to evangelize. I'm not here to try and tell you this is the way things really are. Whether you like it or not, you better listen. But if you want to know what I saw, and if you want to know what I think of it, I'd be happy to tell you. Well, they're always looking for explanations, but if you ask the people who are coming forward with their hypothetical explanations, ask them one question and you will stop them cold in their tracks every time. What's consciousness? They have no idea. See, it may be a product of the brain, but what is it? They can't answer it. They have no idea. It is the spearhead of the spiritual being that you are. And everything comes after that. That's who you are. You do know that you exist, and you do know that because you're conscious. I'm that person asking, who am I? I am me. I am consciousness. And an unlimited expression of it, no less. Although we convince ourselves it's not true while we're here. Oh, there's all kinds of limitations on you. Yeah? Try it. And that was one of the things that I ran across when I was just leaving this world in the near-death experience. Of course, it was so simple, and I just didn't pay attention to it. It was right there, and I missed it. And then you realize, of course I missed it. I wanted to miss it. You can't experience this place on the same level if you don't ignore those things. Got to. And they're the simplest things in the world. How simple is it? I am. It doesn't get any simpler than that. You're an unlimited expression of the Spirit. There's no limits. And so if I say I am dressed in black, you just ruled out a whole lot of things, and you're no longer describing yourself because there's a whole lot of things you can be in addition to what you just put the limit on. It's unlimited. We're just not used to thinking of it that way. And that was one of the things that really cracked me up, because when I left my body and I pictured myself out in space, I remembered thinking to myself, you just met your larger self. And that larger self is so much bigger than anything you would have imagined that a God could be. I'm not saying you're God, although essentially you kind of are, but it was huge. That kind of rendered the question, is there a God, a rather moot point, because you just figured it out that if there is one, it'll be beyond your imagination. So how are you going to know it? I've been told God is love, and that seems to be something I've heard more often than anything else. And if God is love, I met God. Not only will I tell you that, but everybody I've talked to that's had an NDE said the same thing. Oh, it is so much more real on the other side than it is here. This is a joke. This is like going to a movie and watching a movie. When a movie's over, you go outside and it's a gorgeous, beautiful day and it's bright sunshine and comfortable. You say, that may have been on the screen and it looked like something like this, but this is real. It's that dramatically different. Here, they don't know that. They don't know this isn't real. But for me to walk up to somebody and say, this isn't real, all it does is upset them. You came here to experience this. I'm not going to try to distract you and tell you got it wrong. I would no more do that. And it's a different thing if somebody wants to hear it. That's great. I'll tell you anything you want to know, But I'm not out here to shove my opinion down anybody's throat. I'm just trying to tell you what it was I experienced, what I learned from it, what I picked up while I was there. All right, let me bend your brains. You can edit this out if you don't want it. You're not here. I'm not either. But I know it. I live with 1 foot here and 1 foot there. I wouldn't turn that loose for anything. That's reality. And if I turn this loose, I'll just go back there. Well, obviously, I had some reason why I wanted to be here, so I'm going to stick around and see what it is. But is it real important? It's just part of a drama. This appears to be real, and we want it to seem real. So, of course, we ignore anything that's going to get in the way of it seeming to be real. We don't want to see it. If we saw everything that we're doing, we would know we're not here. Well, that makes being here a lot less exciting. We do everything we can to cover it up. You go to bed, you have a dream. I mean, a wonderful dream. And yet, while the dream's happening, you're not aware that it's a dream. When you wake up, you say, oh, I had a dream. But while you were doing the dream, you had no idea it was a dream. To you, it was real. Same kind of thing. It is the other way around. This is a figment of your imagination. It's a dream you're having. You're not even here. You're at source, which is very handy because people say, how do I contact my Uncle Fred? He died 10 years ago. Well, you're not here. And he never was either. You're there. He's there. Nudge him in the side and say, hey, Fred, how are you? It's not like you got to go there to make contact. You're already there. No need to go take off and go be where he is. You don't have to have a near-death experience to talk to your Uncle Fred. Not a problem. When I was a kid, I was terrified every night of my life. Something was in the room with me and it unnerved me. And probably the part that made me the most nervous wasn't the fact that there was something in the room with me. It's that when I told people there was something in the room with me, they looked at me and said, no, there isn't. I like to be able to prove that this exists. I did get the chance to later, when I was about 28, 29. Was at a young lady's house. I was telling her that story, and she says, I hate to tell you this, but there's something here now. And I said, well, I'm not sure how to tell you this, but it's in the room behind you there, and I can see it. She said, oh my. She makes you nervous. She says, yeah, kind of. Nobody's ever seen it before. I said, well, don't worry about it. Here, he'll go away. And she looks at me and says, how did you do that? He went away right now. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable here. You asked me to make it go away, so I did. Then she lit up and she says, oh my God, something else is here, and this is not familiar to me. And I said, don't worry about him. He's with me. That was the other thing that was startling, is that no sooner did this happen, and the girl looked at me and she says, how did you know he made me uncomfortable? And I said, the same way that I know you're sitting there right now, remembering when you sat on your uncle's lap and he had his blue gingham shirt on at the family reunion picnic in upstate New York. And her eyes went wide and her jaw dropped off and she said, you're reading my mind. I said, yes, I am. Try it, it's fun. And she did. We sat there and read each other's minds, and all we did was confirm what the other one was thinking. Telepathy is your native tongue. You can write a whole book and somebody can pick up on it and read it instantly. And the other thing is that I've had a lot of people say, well, so why don't you read minds all the time? Well, in the first place, are you so sure I don't? And in the second place, most people aren't used to it, so I would be kind of seen as a freak. You know, we're used to language. That's what we use to communicate. And the truth is, we also telepathically communicate very definitely. We pick up on it when somebody's thinking something, even if they haven't said it. Happens all the time. Somebody put it beautifully the other day. I thought this was great. They said, you know, how many people do you know that have thought about somebody and thought, oh, I want to try to get in touch with them, and they look through all their books and everything and they can't find anything on them, and they finally give it up, and the next day they call them. It happens to all of us. You put that word out there telepathically, hey, I want to be in touch with Brad from the 4th grade, and all of a sudden Brad gets the same bug, only he happened to have your phone number listed in his book, and he pulls it open and he calls you. So we communicate telepathically all the time. When The Secret came out, my wife at the time looked at me and she says, they got this movie out, we ought to watch it. I said, okay. So we watch it and we say, yeah, that's really good. How about every Sunday morning we watch this thing? So I sit down and I watch it with her on this next Sunday morning. And I'm saying, well, I just bought all of this teleprompting gear and I could really use a teleprompting job. Only at this time of year, it's August, everybody goes on vacation. You can't get a job doing teleprompting at this time of year. But that's what I want. Movie ended. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. You a teleprompter? Yep. You available? Yeah. When? Oh, about an hour ago. I said, I think I can work this out. I go down and I shoot the gig. They give me a check on the spot. A great crew. Magnificent lunch. I mean, we just had a ball. It was terrific. The next week, we turn the thing on again. I want another one, but this time I want to prompt somebody who's metaphysical. Somebody who's got some substance, like that guy, you know, in the middle of the movie, like that guy, you know? Sure enough, movie's over. Phone rings about an hour later. You teleprompter? Yeah. Price good? Yeah. Okay, cool. Thursday? Yeah, fine, done, no problem. I go down, I sit down, and I start running out the script for this guy, and I'm saying, this is all metaphysical stuff. I love this. I got exactly what I was looking for. And then we broke for lunch. He looks over at me and he says, so what's going on in your life? I said, I saw this movie called The Secret. He says, oh yeah, I was in that. I said, holy sh! That's the guy I pointed to on the screen and said, I want to teleprompt with somebody like him. I got that guy. I find it amazing. People say, well, so you create your reality. Yes, you do. What I find amusing is the fact that after you open up to that idea, it becomes fun. It's amazing. You picture things and they happen. You can focus on anything you want. If you focus on that which you want, you will most likely materialize it. Now, there's exceptions to that. Oh, I really want a winning lottery ticket. The only problem is you've already convinced yourself by listening to all the other people that ever said, you can't win that you convince yourself it's not possible, therefore you do not materialize it. You have to believe that it is perfectly within your capability of making that happen. Then it'll happen. You know, most people aren't fascinated with the idea of living in poverty, but most people will be thrilled to have the experience in this lifetime where they go from dirt poor to filthy rich. Oh boy, they'd give anything for that experience. I mean, if you've already got everything you need and you become totally filthy rich, so what? If you're broke, you're all the way up against the wall. That could be exciting. How do you deal with looking at people who are suffering? Do you have any humanity? Do you have any empathy? I mean, really, come on, Rich, let's get serious here. What do you see when somebody is hurting? Well, in part, that depends on what you want to do with it within you. If you can help them, by all means, feel free to do that. Everything is changing. Free will is a real crazy red herring. We see this as it's too big, I can't change it. That all depends on when everybody collectively heads in the same direction. Now, I find it very interesting because in the last 10 years, people have collectively been heading in a different direction, and they're all heading that way. Now, at what point does it break loose? That falls under the description of the 100 monkey syndrome. They teach monkeys how to do something. They say, well, you know, here, we'll give them a banana. If they hit this button first, the banana will come out and it's already been peeled. They hit this button, it comes out unpeeled. And they run this experiment several hundred times. And somewhere around the 100 mark, they'll run the same experiment halfway around the earth. And the monkeys will go hit the other button. They figured it out from the 100 monkeys a half a world away. We're all connected, so are the monkeys. And at some point or another, they all look in the same direction at the same time, and they have the same experience, and they create the reality collectively.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride, and we kill those people. It's just a ride, and we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer.
I love that expression. I mean, I know it all so well. Bill Hicks saying, some of us have been on the ride before, and we tell everybody, it's just a ride. If there's one thing I could tell people that would change their lives more than anything else, and I can tell them this, I just can't prove it. But collectively, all the people that have had NDEs can prove it, just by virtue of the fact that they all say the same kind of things, and that is, you don't die. It's not possible. Somebody just said it the other day. You will have religions out there. I'm not talking about belief in whatever kind you want. I'm talking about religions, organized religions. They're saying there's a God out there, and they're telling you that they can tell you what he wants and what he expects of you. How does he know this? The guy who's telling you this is a preacher. He doesn't know any better than you do. You're going to have religions out there for as long as people are afraid of dying. Well, let me throw my 2 cents in a hat here. You don't die. You'll just move off of this dimension and onto another one. Your relatives will be convinced that you died, right up until they die, and then they'll look at it and say, oh, then they'll know. You're not going to die.